Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. Many of us spent a little extra time indoors this week with the bitter wind chills, and for some, now is a great time to do some planning ahead. So today we want to revisit a piece from last summer on canola storage. We begin with our stored products engineer, Carol Jones.
Well, canola is a little over a third oil. So every time you picture a handful of canola, just picture a third of that being exactly like the oil you buy off the grocery shelf. A third of it would be that oil. So oil and heat don't mix too well. And when we harvest canola in Oklahoma, it's about 90 degrees. So that oil can go rancid if we don't handle that crop appropriately. Where wheat, we can put it in the bin and it's stable. Canola, not so much. It goes through about another 3 to 4 weeks of a sweat period where it will actually heat itself. So we've got both the temperature outside being 90 to 100 degrees plus the product itself heating itself. So we've got a real potential for rancidity to build, and we have to take some precautions to keep that from happening.
So if I'm a producer who's going to store my canola on my place, what kind of options do I have?
Well, there's 3 options. First of all, you can sell it directly to the buyer and just not have to worry about storage, and that's probably what most of the producers have done in the past few years. But as we get more information, we found out that we can put aeration in a steel bin, much like we have in the background here, and put air through that product and cool it off and keep it stable until time to store it. We've also got some research considering putting canola in grain bags. We've had good examples of that out in the field, but we'd like to find some better alternatives where it doesn't take up so much land and so many resources, but put the canola directly into a grain bag, seal it up, and it's going to be good 4 or 5 months from now to sell.
And you mentioned the research, so there's more to study.
There is much more to study. We've had some really good support from the Oilseed Commission and from some of our other granting agencies, and we've got some extensive research that's really pretty groundbreaking research here at OSU.
To learn more about that work, we turn to research engineer Kevin Moore.
Yeah, so Oklahoma has been coming a long way in the production of canola. We're the second largest producer of canola in the United States. So it's important for us to be able to figure out how we can continue to develop this crop in Oklahoma. But Oklahoma's hot, and most of the storage guidelines for canola are based on a northern climate where the temperatures are cooler. So we're always trying to deal with how can we prevent damage to the crop while it's being stored in these high temperatures. A lot of farmers have bins at their farm that they want to be able to utilize. And so the question is, how long can they store it without having problems with the canola? And are there other options that they could use for trying to extend the length of time that they could store the canola and the quality of the canola during the time that it's in storage?
To solve this problem, the team is looking to repurpose existing technology.
One of the ways that people have looked at storing canola is using grain bags, and this is an example of material that is utilized for grain bag storage. And these are usually spread out in large cocoons in a field. And the canola is put inside, and it's basically an air-free environment that helps to prevent breakdown of the material while it's in storage. And we wanted to look into seeing if this material could be utilized within a bin that didn't have aeration. So that's not usually an ideal situation for storing canola without aeration. But if we could find a way to utilize those bins that are already in place, then in certain situations where perhaps a farmer doesn't have a large area to lay down a grain bag, they might be able to utilize some of the existing infrastructure that they have in their current grain bins, utilizing some material like this in order to extend the amount of time and the quality of their product whenever they pull it out of storage.
While this research is just getting started, the team does have resources available that can help canola producers today.
We've got an extensive fact sheet collection. One talks about the moisture content and the temperature management of canola. We also have a growing guide. It was produced in collaboration with Kansas State University, and those are all available through OSU and through our website.
Okay, terrific. Thanks a lot. Carol Jones, our stored products engineer.
Thanks, Rachel.
And for a link to that website, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet Weather Report. As we begin a new year, this is a good time to look back and see what 2014 had for us. A look at rainfall for 2014 shows that most of the state had 80% or less of their normal rainfall, the yellow areas. The olive-colored areas came in at 80 to 100% of normal rainfall. The observed rainfall amounts ranged from a low of 13 and 2/10 at Kenton to a high of 50 and 9/10 at Clayton. Tulsa had 27 and 6/10, while Oklahoma City North collected 32 and 4/10 inches of rain last year. Checking on soil moisture at 10 inches, the values are high east of a line from Blackwell to Oklahoma City to Altus. Fractional water index values of 9/10 or 1 indicate excellent soil moisture at the 10-inch depth. Dry areas have values close to 0 and are colored brown. Deeper in the soil at 24 inches, dry areas in the state spread out in the Panhandle and Southwest. A dry area pops out in north-central Oklahoma across Garfield County, and we see some drier Mesonet sites at Durant, Shawnee, Washington, and Perkins, 24 inches deep. Now here's Gary with a check on how we are faring with drought as we start this new year.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everybody. We're certainly off to a cold start to 2015, but how are we doing on the drought at the beginning of the new year? Let's take a look at the latest map and see where we stand. Well, as you can see, we still have that significant drought across the western half of the state, with extreme to exceptional drought, the two worst categories, predominant still in southwestern and northwestern Oklahoma and out in the Panhandle. We have had a little bit of relief down in southeastern Oklahoma. They had 3 to 4 inches of rain down in that area, so we went from moderate drought in that area to simply abnormally dry. What do we see for the rest of January? The National Weather Service's Climate Prediction Center, their outlooks show increased odds of above normal precipitation for at least the southern 2/3 of the state. Now when we translate that into the drought outlook for the rest of January, unfortunately the Climate Prediction Center sees that drought where it already exists in the state either persisting or possibly even intensifying. That's despite the increased odds of above normal precipitation. That's simply because this time of the year, it's the driest time of our year, so increased or above normal precipitation does not really have that much of an impact. Now if that occurred during May, that would be a different story. But during the driest time of the year, we'll just take what we can get. Now remember, these things can change pretty quickly. We could get some really nice rains in here or even some nice snows, and we could see some drought relief. So don't give up hope just yet. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Now to the latest ag apps for your smartphone or tablet. This week, Brian Arnell takes a look at the best tools for scouting.
The groups of apps I'd like to talk about today is the scouting and mapping tools. Scouting tools are all-inclusive tools that you can use when in the field, or I deem as very useful when you're in the field to make identification and other things that go beyond just a lookup table. Several of these come from the universities. Soy diseases is created by South Dakota Cooperative Extension Service. With a little shift and a little agronomics, it's very handy. So you can get into the tool in the app and you look, damping off Pythium seed rot. It's going to occur through this time period. I should be scouting from May to June as far as this goes. Bacterial leaf blight. In all of these, you can go into each of the diseases. It'll tell you what it's caused by, give you some very good pictures, and also the disease period, occurrence, symptomology, and impact, and also control. It is from another location. South Dakota's weather is significantly different than Oklahoma. However, I think it can be well adapted into our state and into our soybean production system. Another one is the NP-IPM Guide, the Northern Plains IPM Guide. It's another soybean guide. It's a Northern Plains Integrated Pest Management Guide. You can go in here. It gives you a drop-down list of all the pests that you may find in your different crops, an ID key for all the pests that can be found on soybeans. You can go in there and select wing type and other identification tools. So it goes well beyond just identifying the problem or identifying the pest. It gets into the life cycle of the insect or the life cycle of the pest, what it's doing to the plant and how we manage it. Another tool is the Aphid Advisor. This is actually created by the University of Guelph. It's a neat little tool that's built for Ontario. It's the tool I'm going to keep an eye on when it comes to next soybean season though. Another app put out by Trimble is the Connected Farm, or otherwise known as Scout. It'll come up as both of these in the search. Now this is a great app for in-field tools and applications. It doesn't work very well if you're in an office or off-site. But in this tool, you can go in, you can map around a field, say take this gator out and we can map a field very accurately. We can go in there, we can take scouting reports, we can take insect reports. You can take a photo with your tablet or your iPhone or your smartphone, and it'll tie a lat long to it, and you'll also be able to put a note with it and say, insect damage here is high. Check for X, Y, and Z. Or we have a low spot in this field, we may have drainage issues. You can put all these notes in with your images, tie it in there. I need to be able to do stuff away from the field. And with this app, you have to be in field to do almost all of it. One of my most used apps is the Sst Cirrus App. This app is free, but to get full use of it, you do have to download and purchase their desktop software. In this app, there's several nice things I like about it. One is the ability to map fields. I can quickly map a field from my desk in any state in the union fairly accurately. One of the things I like most about this app is the ability to use it for grid soil sampling and zone sampling. You can, on your iPad, go into it, create a grid, and it will take you to the places you need to go to sample for that grid. It'll integrate it into the desktop. You can go in and select the pest and the level of infestation and the importance of each. Both these tools are extremely handy when you're scouting fields as far as note taking, as far as information, and either one is a preference to the user, but I highly recommend both. And if you want to get into it, if you want to get into grid soil sampling, Cirrus is a great tool to get a first dive into that technology and see if that's going to be something worth for you on your farm. For more information on apps, go to the SUNUP website at sunup.okstate.edu.
Joining us now is Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist. And Kim, let's begin with the wheat market today and those ups and downs that you were tracking through December.
We ended up November with the cash prices in Oklahoma right at $6. In mid-December, that price had increased to $6.60. Good opportunity to pull the trigger on some wheat, both new crop and old crop. We finished December right at $6. Now, since the 1st of January, cash prices have continued to go on down. If you look at the Kansas City March contract, remember that $6.20 line? You know, we like to never broke through that resistance point. Then it became the support point. This last week, we're back down below $6.20 on the March, and that's troubling news there.
And then what do you think are some of the factors behind the price movements?
I think in December, the big driving factor was the funds adjusting their positions. They were basically short the wheat. They had to buy their way out of those short positions. You had some things going on in Russia with them, stopping exports, or at least they're talking about now in February, March, ending those exports. You got that going on. You had Australia's crop not coming in quite as high as you expected. And then you've got the crop conditions, hard red winter wheat, the crop in the ground. We've got adequate moisture, but moisture is still in short supply. You've got this extremely cold weather. You've got little to no snow cover, and the market's worried a little bit about freeze damage on this crop.
And speaking of the market, you're keeping an eye on those USDA reports that are set for release on Monday.
Yeah, on Monday, the January WASDE will be released, plus the winter wheat plantings report will come out. Looking at the WASDE for wheat, the market right now is predicting that the wheat ending stocks, total ending stocks will go up to about 666 million bushels, up from 654, so really insignificant there. If you look at the planted acres for all winter wheat, expected to come in about 42.56 million acres. That's up from 42.4, so a slight increase, less than 1%. Hard red winter wheat planted acres right at 31 million acres compared to about 30.5 last year, so you're up about 3.5%. Soft red winter wheat planted acres down a little bit to right at 8 million acres, down from 8.5 million.
Now, we talked a lot about wheat. How are things looking with corn and beans?
Slight changes in corn and beans, nothing significant there, I don't think. You look at the ending stocks for corn, 1,927,000,000, down from just right at 2 billion bushels. Soybean ending stocks, 393 million, down from 410. I think those are minor changes. The big thing to watch on these reports on both wheat, corn, and beans is if USDA numbers don't come out with trade expectations. If that happens, we could have some price movements.
And then finally, with all this in mind, your advice for Oklahoma producers right now?
I think the big lesson in December is if you get a price rally in wheat, you need to take advantage of that. Right now, I'm still predicting the cash price at harvest about $5.75. That's going to get your July contract somewhere around 6, a little above 6. You get a rally, take advantage of it.
Okay, Kim Anderson, Crop Marketing Specialist, thanks a lot.
We're getting ever closer to the start of the spring calving season, and that's a reminder for me that we should be putting together a protocol, a plan so that everyone in the family or the hired hands know exactly what to do and when to do it if they see a cow or a heifer that's about to start into the process of labor and the process of delivering the calf. Part of that protocol has to be when. When do we decide to bring that cow or heifer up and do an examination to see if in fact she does need assistance and apply it if it's going to be necessary. There's research that gives us some rules of thumb that we can work with. Research done at the experiment station, the USDA station up at Miles City, Montana, and research done here at Oklahoma State University back in the mid-'80s. At Miles City, they looked at both cows that had had calves before, and first calf heifers. Here at Oklahoma State, we had research on 2-year-old first calf heifers. It's interesting to note that in the case of first calf heifers, both experiments showed that the average time between the first appearance of the water bag and the calf being completely expelled on the ground is only about 55 minutes. In the case of the cow that has had calves before, it's much shorter. That USDA research indicated that it was only on an average of about 22 minutes. So that gives us some guidelines, I think, then that we can work with. As we're watching a cow or a heifer that's starting into labor, we probably want to watch our clocks real closely, and if that cow isn't making real progress in about a half hour's time, there's probably something wrong, and we need to bring her in, examine her, and provide assistance if necessary. In the case of that 2-year-old heifer, both data sets indicate that if she's not making real progress in 1 hour's time after the appearance of a water bag or baby calf's feet, if she's not making real progress, we need to bring her in, examine her, and provide the assistance if necessary. And certainly remember that if you find a situation that you're not comfortable handling very, very quickly, call your veterinarian as soon as possible. That'll give you the best chance of saving both the cow and the calf. We want to save every calf that we possibly can with this high calf market so that all of those calves that have a chance to live make it to weaning time next year, and we can get that high dollar for them at sale time. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Once again, Texas AgriLife Extension and the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service are hosting an event for producers from across the region.
We have a lot in common. We're sharing pretty much similar rainfall, issues. We're sharing similar problems and challenges with the drought. We're sharing issues with salinity in our irrigation water and declining irrigation capacity. And the crop mix is pretty similar. We're growing wheat, some canola, there's some sesame and cotton on both sides of the river. And so, it just kind of really makes sense to try to get together and put together, assemble a program that we feel like is of extreme value. So what we're looking forward to in Childress in January of 2015 is the second installment of this. We have Texas A&M AgriLife Extension specialists coming in to cover some things, and we have our Oklahoma Cooperative Extension specialists coming in to cover other things. We're going to have Dr. Galen Morgan come up from College Station. He's Extension Cotton Specialist for the state of Texas. And he's going to talk and share information concerning his variety test results, and then I will be there on basically in the same presentation following Dr. Morgan to discuss what we're seeing. And then we'll have Dr. John Robinson come in and dissect this global cotton market. And I know that we really have to pay attention to what's going on in China, and Dr. Robinson always does a good job of summarizing that. And then Dr. Mark McFarland will be coming up from College Station to talk about some of his work with respect to fertility management in cotton in the state of Texas. So it's going to be an interesting group of folks, and a good team effort again. Look forward to it.
The Red River Crops Conference is set for January 27th and 28th in Childress, Texas. Registration is $25, and you can find more information on our website, sunup.okstate.edu. We want to talk more today about the aspect of locally grown, which is a growing movement in the United States, with food industry economist Rodney Holcomb. And Rodney, you have one aspect in particular to talk about called CSAs. What does that stand for?
Right. CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And the concept has been around for a long time. What we think of if someone hears the term CSA today, they're really talking about a local food movement that happened back in the 60s in Europe and Japan, where consumers would go to the farmers and say, we would like to pay you in advance if you would set aside so much of your acreage to grow specific crops for us. So that CSA concept has become very prevalent, especially on the coasts in the U.S., but we're starting to see more of that in Oklahoma as well, where you'll have consumers contract with a farmer, and that farmer agrees to set aside so many acres and grow specific crops or provide specific items to the CSA members on shares.
Now, what's the difference between a CSA and then a farmer's market or even a food co-op?
Okay, farmers markets are what we're most familiar with because they've been around just forever, it seems. But in a farmer's market, you as a consumer travel to the market. The farmers show up, they have whatever they've produced. You look at what they're growing and you may buy it, you may not buy it. And that's your prerogative. And then at the end of the day, each of you go to your respective homes and that's it. Even in something as the Oklahoma Food Cooperative, which has thousands of members, they have a few hundred vendors and in roughly 5,000 to 6,000 consumers. And every month online, they say, here's what our vendors have available. Do you as a consumer want to buy it or not? And if you buy it, that order is prepared for you and you can pick it up at a delivery point. But for a CSA, it really is a matter of the consumers becoming financially and in some cases physically involved in the farming activities, because they are promising that farmer, I will give you this much money up front for you to grow specific crops that I want. So it's not just a matter of what do you have, it's what do I want. And that farmer has said, I will commit my land and resources and labor to growing exactly what you want.
And it's sort of an investment, and with any investment, I'm sure there's risks associated, especially if the crop doesn't make it.
Absolutely. There are risks with that. So you as a shareholder in the CSA, you get a percentage of whatever is produced. If it's a great crop year, you may come out really fortunate. You may have all sorts of stuff that you have to put in the freezer at the end of the growing season. But if it's a bad crop year, like some of the drought years we had in the last few years, the crop may be pretty small. But you are physically involved in the activities of that farm. In some cases, right down to labor. So we have some CSAs where the shareholders actually come out and help with some of the activities on the farm. In other cases, it's just the farmer providing his labor, and you get your share of whatever's grown. But you have a risk position in the production.
If someone's interested in getting involved in a CSA, how do they even begin?
One way to do so may be to check with a nearby farmer that you know from a farmer's market. If you have a specific vendor where you're regularly buying products from, talk to that farmer and see if he or she may be interested in a CSA type activity. You may be able to get some of your neighbors together and convince that farmer to put aside so much land and dedicate it to exact crops that you want grown. And I say crops, but in reality, the CSA concept is much more than just fruits and vegetables. We do see some grains, meat products, eggs, and the list goes on, even to flowers and firewood. So all of these things, you may get shares of that from the farm by being a shareholder in the CSA.
All things that people are interested in. Okay, community-supported agriculture. Thanks a lot, Rodney. Finally today, enrollment is still open for OSU's first ever Mooc, which stands for Massive Open Online Course. Farm to Fork, a panoramic view of agriculture, is open to anyone, regardless of your age or where you live, and also may be taken for college credit. The goal is to connect ag science to food and many of the steps in between. And this is no ordinary classroom. OSU Professor Bailey Norwood takes students on virtual tours, covering a wide variety of subjects, including dairy, farming operations, animal well-being, and soil testing, and looks at some of the current issues in the ag and food industries. Farm to Fork starts Monday, January 12th, and enrollment runs through January 20th. For more information, visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu. That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu, and also follow us on YouTube and other social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week. We'll see you next time at SUNUP.